name's Mike Lawson. I was I was raised in this area, Mokina.
My name's Teresa Lawson, and I was raised in Illinois in a small community called Mokina, which is near Chicago.
I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. I went to trade school in Chicago, got an associate's degree in auto diesel technology, and decided I wanted to farm.
Well, in spring of 1973, I was with my husband's sister. She was a good friend of mine at the time, and we were in high school. And we had gotten off the bus near her home, and it was raining out. And so I went inside her home with her to wait till the rain stopped. And I was observing him.
What I was doing was on the roof putting an antenna. And she came out and told me that I was doing it wrong.
So that was how I first met him.
And I looked at her and I thought, wow, she's tall.
And I was going to walk home after the rain had stopped.
And my sister said, you know, you can give her a ride home. It's raining out. And I said, she told me I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm not giving her a ride home. So that night I thought, well, I was not very nice, so I better go over and apologize. And I went over to apologize, and evidently she forgave me.
Later that day or the next day, and asked me if I'd like to go bowling with him. And that's where our relationship kind of began.
Well, we just felt like we were meant for each other, and went out for probably a year. And that's when we started thinking about marriage.
We dated all through my senior year. I went to nursing school. By the time I was in my second year of nursing school, he had proposed to me.
We just enjoyed each other's company. We saw each other almost every day. And I remember the one time I had worked all day long, and she kind of wanted me to see her every day. And I was very, very tired. And I went over there, and there was a fire in the fireplace, and she and I were laying down in front of the fireplace talking, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was 3:30 in the morning. And I thought, boy, am I in trouble. And I went home, and
everybody kind of just said, well, it's about time, because they just figured it was going to happen, because we had been going out together for about 3 years at that point. And we were married in August of 1976.
He said, I'm going to give you two choices. The first one is you can have a wedding reception, you can have the biggest one you want, invite anybody you want, or I'll give you $5,000 and a brand new extension ladder. And I said, well, I'll take the ladder. And boy, she punched me in the arm and said, yeah, we're having a reception. I'm just a practical person. I thought I could use an extension ladder and the $5,000, seeing as we just got married, so. But I don't know, I saw her and I thought she was the one for me from the beginning, so.
It wasn't anything really, exciting or fancy. We had talked about it off and on for probably a year before he actually asked me to marry him. And we talked about what kind of rings we'd like to have and all of that. So it wasn't anything really fancy or romantic. We're both of the mindset that we knew that he was for me and I was for him. We kind of both just knew that from the beginning. I remember on our wedding day, which was August 7th of 1976, I remember waking up that morning, and I had been praying for a beautiful sunny day, but I wanted the Lord to give us a cool day because I knew it could be very hot. He blessed us with a day in the 70s. It was a very sunny and beautiful day. It was in the 70s, and I was so excited to wake up and realize that my prayer was being answered. And little did I realize that it was the first Saturday of the month. Looking back on that now, I think that had special significance, but I didn't know it back then. I was filled with excitement, and I wasn't the least bit fearful because we had already decided and talked about, our plans for the future, and I felt very comfortable with our relationship.
So we had a big reception, and I had a lot of relatives there, and she didn't, because a lot of her relatives are from up in Oregon and Washington.
I always admired my mother. She was a very strong woman, and I was the oldest of 6. And so I felt in my mind that someday I could handle 6 children. when I met my husband and we started talking about our future together and having a family.
Well, like Teresa said, I thought we'd have 5, and she thought we'd have 6.
God ended up giving us 11, which is 5 and 6. So God just played a trick on us.
Be looking in the future to having a child, and kind of scary to be raising a child, when you don't really know what you're doing at first. God provides you the courage and the wisdom to raise that child. But when our first child, Doug, was born,
just holding that little baby and having gone through all the birth process and all the discomforts of pregnancy and everything, I just looked at him and thought, wow, this was all worth it. He was just so perfect and so beautiful, and we were just so happy.
It's really awesome, to produce a child from, it's just hard to explain.
The end and the culmination of this pregnancy will be this beautiful baby. And back then we didn't have ultrasound, and so there's no way to know the sex of the baby, and we didn't care. We just were excited.
When our first child, Doug, was born, he became like a buddy, and I was thinking to myself, how can we have any more children? How can I have enough love for more children when I love this first child,
When I was pregnant with the 4th one, it threw me to my knees, because I thought, God, I can't do this every year. I want to have a big family, but I can't have all these babies one year after the other. And I was just begging God to help me. And my mother, in her wisdom, I called her, and I remember crying and saying, I'm pregnant again with the 4th one. What do I do? And she gave me the most wonderful counsel. She said, begin to pray the rosary every day and ask Our Lady to help you. And ask her for wisdom and for truth and for discernment, and she will show you the path. So I started doing that every day, and it's true. That helped me. I had a totally different perspective on mothering and parenting and prayer. And I also learned to continually be talking to Our Lady. I developed a really close relationship with her. We found natural family planning in that process of prayer, of praying the rosary. We were led to natural family planning.
I always pray in the morning that I'll have a good day, and I have been working for 1.5 years on an adoration chapel at our church. I've been there so much that people say, what, do you live here? Because anytime anything needs to be done, I'm either there helping the person that's doing it, or I'm doing it myself. And we are just waiting for that to be done so Teresa and I can go down there, and adoration, we can pray anytime we want. So
we've had lots of struggles in our life. When you have children, it just comes with the territory, so to speak. And even just being married, there's struggles involved in that. You have to learn to live with each other and your differences with each other. And then when you have children thrown into the mix, then you have to learn how to be really attentive to your children's needs, but at the same time, you can't neglect your spouse's needs. So it becomes a real balancing act.
I've had all kinds of jobs. I've been a heavy equipment operator, truck driver, general contractor on remodeling for her father. My son is the same as I am. What I do is I'll hire somebody to do a job for me, and I'll watch them. The next time that job needs to be done, I'll do it myself. And my oldest son is the same way. He can do anything. He just watches somebody do it one time, and he'll do it. Over
the years, our children have seen our sorrows and joys. We lost 3 babies. One of them, the first baby we lost, was actually baby number 7.
I was pouring concrete out by the fuel shed, and I had all the kids put their handprints and their name. After we got to Andrea, the 6th child, I wrote "The End." And then Teresa became pregnant, and I was very upset. And after about 5 months, I woke up and the light was on in the living room. I came out here and Teresa was crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, the baby died.
She was 5 months along, and our children were all excited about another new little baby in the family. And so when she died, they were just devastated. And we all were. And we prayed about it. You know, we prayed as a family about it.
We went to the hospital, and she had the baby, and we named her Bridget Eileen, and we had a funeral for her. And I was just upset with myself that I would be mad about her being pregnant. So she and I said, you know what? We're going to have as many kids as God gives us.
Prayer helped to hold us all together through it. But we became very close, much closer, just through that experience.
I would just say that you have to trust that God will not give you any more than you can handle. So struggles and everything, you get through it.
Some of our children were not as open about sharing their emotions and their feelings about the loss of their sister. And it took many years of communicating with some of them before we realized how it had affected them.
And after that, and that was not even halfway. So. And then she lost 2 more babies because we were trying to have a boy. We kept having girls, and we're just going to keep trying until we have a boy. So we had Nathan.
When we had our older children, our older 5, they were entering their teenage years. The oldest 3 were entering their teenage years. And we could see some little rebellion starting to grow in them. We could see that some of their friends were not what we wanted them to be. And so we began praying. I especially began praying that God would send, through Our Lady, because I was very devoted to Our Lady at that point, I was asking that God would send through Our Lady some help for us so that we wouldn't be drawn into the world, and that our family would experience some healing, because we were just struggling with a lot of emotional things, in our family with our teenagers. Through that process, we were blessed to find a new ministry that came into our lives. It's called the Apostolate for Family Consecration, and they have a place out in Ohio called Catholic Family Land. And I told our former pastor many years ago, about 26 years ago, I told our former pastor when we became involved with this apostolate that I felt like Our Lady had literally taken us by the hand and brought us to her Son through this apostolate. And it totally changed our lives, and it helped us to form a very solid prayer base for ourselves. We began praying the daily rosary together as a family, all of us, and it became a very important part of our lives, and challenging to pray with children as more and more came along, but we always managed to do it every evening, and it's been a real blessing for our family.
We were kind of stuck on materialism when we first got married, having the nicest thing and showing things off, and I would think being materialistic is the worst thing. We would hope that our children would not be materialistic. And one of the things was, I built this house, and the woodwork, I did all the woodwork, and everything was perfect. And then when the grandchildren, or when the kids started playing in the house, dinging up I'd really get mad. And then the grandchildren came along, because I told my wife that I wasn't going to fix anything until the kids were grown. And she said, well, you can fix everything up, put new doors on and everything else, and the grandchildren are going to be here then. So I thought, oh, what the heck, it's a house, it's got the lived-in look. That's what we call it, so.
All families face joys and sorrows. What I have found over the years is that a lot of the problem that families have now is fear. And I think it's important to develop a really strong prayer life as a couple and also as a family. And it's not comfortable at first. It was not comfortable for us to do that at first, but we persevered. And what we found is that the more we spent time in prayer, the more the fear was removed, because society just fills us with a lot of fear. And if the fear is removed and then all the obstacles kind of go away. They just kind of melt away.
We have a couple of children that have said that you can't really force religion on your child. I think some of the older ones we kind of did, but you just have to be careful with how you introduce the faith to your children. You don't want to scare them away. You don't want them, to get the wrong idea or whatever. So it's a tough challenge.
Our oldest child, Doug, is 39 years old. He'll be 40 in the fall. And he has always had special gift for mechanical things and electrical things. And when he was growing up, he liked to take things apart and eventually learned to put them back together. And he actually is an electrician today.
Jenny is obsessed with animals and her children too. She loves her children, takes very good care of them, but she's just an animal lover.
And then our third oldest, our son Alan, he's a very gentle-natured spirit.
A very good father, and he loves his family.
He now works in automated systems, and he's married, and he has 3 children.
Heather is interested in music.
She was always one to just walk right up to strangers and start talking about herself and her family. She has a family. She has 4 children, and she's married to a wonderful man.
Rachel is another animal lover. They don't have any children.
She plays piano beautifully, and she has an amazing voice.
They live in Chicago, and they're happy. So
6th child, Andrea.
Very interested in her family.
She also was blessed with the gift of music. Our 7th child, Rebecca,
is interested in family.
She was blessed with the gift of music, and she's a real uplifting, joyful, kind of used to be really boisterous type of a personality. Our 8th child, Sarah, was married in January of last year, and she has a gift of music. She plays piano. Our 9th child is Lorraine. And Lorraine was blessed with an absolutely amazing voice, very mellow alto voice. She was hired by the University of St. Francis. She's a student there now, nursing student. 10th child is Maria. Maria was blessed with an absolutely beautiful voice, and she plays violin. She's taking general education classes at the junior college, but she's hoping to attend University of St. Francis. And then we have one more child.
Nathan, our youngest, is actually taking piano lessons.
He brings so much joy to our family. Always smiling, always happy, always hard worker. He loves to work on our farm. He's always outdoors raking leaves or shoveling snow or sweeping the driveway. He's learned how to take care of my chickens for me, so we take turns taking care of our chickens, and he is just a big help to his dad and to me all the way around.
The best quality I find in my parents is their commitment to their family and to each other, and that they never give up even when times are very hard.
They're very loving, and they're great parents. They've always been a role model for me. I honestly wouldn't be the person I am today without them. There for everything, through everything. My dad's extremely generous.
They have worked so hard throughout our lives. My dad and my mom both worked tirelessly so many days, and they just stuck with it. They took care of us, and they did the jobs that they saw they needed to do. And they were compassionate any time that we made any mistakes. They acknowledged that we made a mistake, but they also forgave us.
In my dad, I would say his diligence to provide for for our family and make sure we always had food and, our basic necessities met. And my mom is her faithfulness. She is always praying and taking everything back to God. The lessons that I've learned from my upbringing and from my parents, just to constantly pray, that's a huge thing. Like, that's the biggest point of wisdom, I guess, is just to keep praying no matter what comes your way in life and stay close to God.
They really help on a daily basis for me. I try to say a morning offering every morning and say the rosary as I'm going to sleep at night. It really helps me cool down, think the day through and everything, and focus on what's happening around me and stay in the present moment.
It just gives me a lot of strength, and I can actually feel the graces God gives me through prayer.
Anytime that I'm really nervous or I have a hard time concentrating, oftentimes I'll default to prayer, and it really, really helps me. It helps me de-stress, especially when I use a rosary and I'm actually going through the beads.
Prayer is a huge part of my life. I make sure I pray every day, multiple times a day. I bring everything to God because He is my strength. I mean, He gives me peace.
I share my happiness and sorrows with my family, mostly because I am a very chatty kind of person. I'm very open and probably speak too much at most times, but I share all my joys and sorrows with my family.
It helps us stay closer together. It's just something that makes us a family, a real, true family.
Particularly the sorrows, because I feel like my family gives me a lot of strength, and also their prayer also helps me to overcome.
Not actually allowing the dangerous things to affect us or to change us for the bad. We just need to learn how to support each other and learn how to face those struggles regardless of how we're affected, and to continue supporting and loving each other through them.
It does help to have a support group, to have other people to communicate with, to share, your emotions.
A family that prays together stays together, because I've seen it firsthand in my family. There's so much going on in our world with divorce and just not having enough love between siblings, between parents and children.
If you don't talk to each other, then you're not going to be able to determine what problems the other has, what the other is thinking, and what the other is feeling, because feelings are really important. Not just what other people are feeling, but what you yourself are feeling, and you need to share that with each other.
As I am married and have 4 children, I find that the times that our family really commits to praying together are times when we really draw a lot of strength from God, and we can overcome a lot of issues that we have in our house.
At the age of 18, my mom would say, "It's up to you now, whether you want to join us with the family rosary or not." And usually we'd stick around and we'd pray it just because we've spent 18 years praying that same rosary with everybody. It was tradition and habit and so many other things. It was a part of our life by then. So we would all just stick around and we'd all participate in the family rosary.
My parents made us pray, and in retrospect, I'm glad they did, regardless of how we felt, because it taught us to be grateful and to be polite, because God is real.
Is a very, very important phrase to me. That is what we center our lives around.
I can think of one memorable trip we took. This was when I was about 11 or 12 years old. We went up to the East Coast, drove up to Rhode Island. There was a school that I was thinking about attending out there to discern a vocation. And so we drove all the way out there with my grandma, my dad's mom, and we just had a lot of really good chats on the way, and we just got to really bond as a family, especially with my grandma. I think we had 7 children at the time, maybe 8. But yeah, we had traveled all the way out there to Rhode Island, and just seeing the things along the way and making memories as a family. It was a very good trip.
We were all pretty sick with motion sickness, and there might have been a flu actually in one of us, but my sister crawled under the table for some reason, and the oven opened up and all the pans and pots fell out on her and made the situation worse. But my parents were both there to take care of us. Even when they're having a difficult time, they still automatically default to taking care of us.
Stick out most are our yearly family trips to Catholic Family Land. It's more of a retreat for a family instead of what you'd call a vacation. Each day has something planned out, but the entire day is not planned so that you can have a little relaxation time and everything. We do formation and we have fellowship.
My words to these people who are afraid would be just let go and let God. He will teach you and guide you. Even people who are not very religious, God will really reach out to them and give them different strengths and, just to learn and grow in all kinds of ways through having children. They just have to accept it.
Words of wisdom I would say to other families is to keep swimming upstream, to keep fighting the fight and living, the way that you were created to live, and to live the way that God created all of us to be, and to be joyful, and to just live His plan for your life and don't care about what the world tells you.
I'm pleased to introduce Shalom World, a new 24/7 dynamic, family-friendly Catholic television channel. This new English language channel is from Shalom Media, a Catholic media ministry that has made great contributions to the church in the past 10 years. I invite you to join me in praying that Shalom World television channel will be a strong voice of the Catholic Church in proclaiming the gospel of Christ to our world today.
Shalom World, God's own channel.